Hi, guys. Oh, it's working. My name is Marta Bellon. I'm a journalist at Business Insider Poland. And we are here to talk about money. Let me introduce my guests, who I hope will share with us some priceless insight about reaching to and getting money from investors. Michał Borkowski, Brainly. Brainly is a social learning platform with more than 60 million users, right?
Yep.
And yes, recently they made headlines with announcement of $50 million investment from Naspers. Am I right?
Yes, correct.
Rafał, Silvair. Okay, and Silvair is a smart lighting platform. This sounds smart.
It's a lighting platform for, it's an end-to-end solution to empower lighting manufacturers to build the product smart and connected.
And Jakub, Krzych, Estimote. Estimote is an iBeacon company. They provide sensor analysis, right?
We provide tools for developers so they can build, contextually rich applications.
Sure. Okay, guys. So I guess that everyone here wants to know how did you do it, how you got the funding, and how you reach to investors. So let me start with the questions. With the question, what were your first steps on this road, and how did you reach to investors? Michał?
Hey. Like when we started Brainly, we were financing by ourselves. So these were like money that we had like from previous ventures. And when we tried to raise Series Seed, like we decided to go first with some business angels. And there was a group of investors that invested in us. I think that like they sometimes call themselves like the Nyanya Mafia. These are like the former investors of one of the Polish startups that successfully exited, and then they had money to invest in other companies. And then they introduced us to the Series Seed investors. For the Series A, the investors called us, and for the Series B, we again were introduced to Naspers by our current investors. So the story is different between the stages, and basically you should try to benefit from each channel that you can build of getting in contact with the investors. And in our case, once that was network, once that was like a cold calling. So yeah.
So it's all about getting the right phone number, right?
Yeah, that's true.
Basically.
Yeah.
Rafał, what's your story?
I think I should mention that we are at the different stages. So Brainly is at B. It's Series B. We are at the seed stage of financing. Jakub is Series A. So in our case, before I get to Silvair, I used to invest in startups. So I had like a great network of my friends who I co-invested with. So as a first step, I contact them. I contact my friends, and I ask them to introduce me to their friends. So that was my first step when I was reaching out to investors. And yeah, so that was our first step.
So advice for everyone, you should pick up your friends very
I think,
carefully.
Yeah, if your friends, I mean, it's naturally. I mean, first ask your friends. If your friends will say yes, that's great. If they will say no, something wrong. Because if even your friends won't be willing to invest into your startup, that's something wrong, even with your pitch or with your idea.
Jakub?
I think my story is very similar. So, Estimote is my second company. So previously I founded Taily, which was acquired by Agora. So I had some initial capital from the exit. However, in order to have a bold vision, of course, we needed more capital to hire engineers and operate. So I think the first step, as you asked, was just to put together like a 10 slides deck and high quality visuals, what the product will look like, and why we're doing that. And then I just started to meet friends, like Rafał said, and actually he was one of the friends who also invested back then. So I reached out to the angel investors in Krakow, and there were many then. And they really loved the idea. They really believed into this product. They invested initial capital. And then this was how we raised the seed or like angel round, which is just, I don't know, like 400K or something like that US dollars. And then my co-founder, he said, okay, let's move it to the next level. Let's try in US because, you know, US is way harder but you know the valuations are better and terms and so on. So we knew no one back then in US. So we said, okay, let's hack it, and he suggested applying to Y Combinator program. So we did that. We went through the program, we pitched during the demo day, and this is you know, a few weeks later we raised 3 million seed round. And then we took it from there. So just recently, a few months ago, we announced 11 million Series A. So like 14 million US dollars total capital raised. It was a journey.
You make it sound so simple, but actually getting money, getting funding can be a pretty tough job. And I wonder, to how many investors did you pitch before getting the funding finally? Michał? Time to think? Take your time.
No, I just remember my discussion with Kuba some time ago when we were discussing the fundraising. I think that Kuba was preparing his round, I was preparing mine, and I think that we are aligned that this is like, you pretty much use the same tools as in the sales process. So you try to build the funnel, because it's not only about like getting money, but it's about getting the right money, and like quite often you need to think about the companies that like potentially could write you a check, but you need to like feel the connection with them. And in the history of our runs, like several times I had that feeling that this investor, like they are offering us some money, but like, is that the fit? And of course, like if you are running out of cash, you will take that because it's important to have the fuel.
You take what they give.
Yeah. But I think that you should try optimize on the quality of investors. So like the size of the round is important, but it's not that important as the quality of investors. And I believe that we were lucky to find the right guys and feel the connection with them when I talk about Brainy and its development.
But how do you know to what door you should knock?
Could you repeat the question?
How do you know to what door you should knock, to what investor you should reach out to?
Like you talk to them, and like you can see if there is a connection, and like this is kind of like a recruitment process. Like in every recruitment process, at least at Brainy, we try to build it around the mutual agreement. So that's why we invite people to Brainy for like a one day of working with us. And at the end of this day, one of the biggest questions is, like, would you like to work with us, given that we showed all of our cards to that person? And I think this is the same with investors.
Rafał?
So we closed 3 seed rounds, in total of $6.5 million. And right now on board, we got like around 50 investors.
50?
50, because like there's a bunch of angel investors and also 6 institutional investors, like seed VCs from East Coast, West Coast, and from Japan, and also from Europe. And I think I had a discussion with over 300 of them to get those 50. So as Michał said, this is a funnel. So you need to have like a really huge. It took us 2.5 years. It's not like, you know.
2.5 years.
2.5 years, yeah, to get that money. So right now we're almost done with our Series A. So this is like a totally different process. With angel investors and seed VCs is a different process. So although discussion was extremely important for us because we're looking for smart money. So we had the discussion with smart people, and they ask smart questions. So it's not just about money. There was really interesting discussions with those guys.
Yeah, so I all agree that it's a funnel, and sometimes I talk to different founders and they say, oh, we just had a great meeting with like Andreessen or something like that, but it just doesn't mean anything. You can have tons of meetings and they lead to nothing actually. So when we start fundraising, it's a process, right? So You just kind of sit with like CRM and you just see, okay, this is the few hundred people you have on the list, who might be interested into IoT and location and mobile, and you just kind of do your research, right? Because the challenge is that if you talk to the wrong people in the right fund, that might not work. So it's a funnel, and our objective as entrepreneurs and founders is also to kind of manage the risk. So that's why you're actually talking to several, it's like dating. You're just talking to several girls at the same time, right? So you're actually talking to several investors at the same time because you just never know. And your job is to make sure that the cash is in the bank so that you can continue to execute. So yeah, I would say that, if you are starting your fundraising, you need to begin with, at least 100 of high quality leads, and then just one by one go through the entire process. And as Rafał said, it's a process. It's a introductory email, and then a first meeting, and then another meeting with a partner, and then a partner meeting, and a pitching, and it's a process. It can take weeks.
Guys, what mistakes did you make, if any, during this process? Do you remember some?
So, every fundraising is that like a sequence of meetings, and one of them go amazing, and you feel like, okay, this guy is really getting it, and you feel that there is really something behind that. And sometimes you go to the meeting, the next one, and the next one, and you feel like that the traction is being lost, especially at the stage after the initial calls when you receive negative feedback that someone is passing on the deal. That's the stage where you need to again try and be enthusiastic, even that someone just sends you an email that is a no. So I believe that the big mistakes, I think the process is pretty standard, and it's hard to make mistakes if you follow the rules. So you put as many guys that are high quality on top of the funnel, then you try to get calls, and it's about execution. But I think that the toughest challenge is that you need to go to every meeting and feel like, okay, I am on something huge, and I need to show to these guys that this is huge, and I need to make them believe. And I think this is the toughest thing. And when I think about mistakes, these are the mistakes that are being done. That sometimes you just go and realize, no.
You sort of answered my second question, which was, which is actually, what are the challenges?
Sorry about that.
Going back to the mistakes.
So for me, the biggest mistake was meeting wrong people. But actually, you never know who is the right person and who is the wrong person. So I think at some point we didn't do enough research before. So especially regarding the seed VCs, we met the wrong guys. So it was great meetings, but those guys did not invest either at IoT or at this stage of investment, or something was wrong. So I think that was the biggest mistake at Silvair.
I think my key learning from fundraising process is that from one hand it's a process, you need to follow it, right? And it's very scientific. There's just conversion and so on. But from the other hand, it's also about relationships, right? So at the end of the day, you need to build conviction among partners you're talking to. They have to be excited, and you have to be excited about them joining you, right? So I think the key learning here would be, from one hand to optimize for the number of leads and number of term sheets, but from the other hand, I think all of us founders should also optimize for the future relationship we will have with the investors. Sometimes, if they are negotiating hard, it's also a signal for what partner they will be, right? So again, from one hand it's a process, from the other hand it's a relationship, and also it's a little bit of dance, because you want that particular investor to invest, but you just cannot tell him straightforward, right? Because
I want you.
Yes, and the other one, they also want you, but they won't tell you immediately because they know that you will,
So it's a game.
It's a game, it's a dance. You need to kind of also be nice, follow up emails, like text them messages, how much you like them. I mean, you can also like them, that's another story, right? But these are like people at the end of the day. And that's my key learning.
What did you guys learn during this process while getting funding about your startup, about your business model, about foreign investors?
Okay, I'll go first. So I think and maybe you can tell me, but I think doing fundraising every 10 months, or it depends how quickly we burn that money. But like doing fundraising from time to time, I think is extremely healthy. Because you are actually going to receive like free advice from the smartest people on this planet, right? So you're pitching them your idea. They are challenging you. They are telling you what you should do, what you should not to do. And of course, that's up to you if you're going to listen. But I think it's really healthy to do it from time to time because it's a free advice. And also, they will challenge you to think differently. And each time I run fundraising, I come back very tired. That's a frustrating, really, challenging process. But from the other hand, it's also a process that I'm inspired because they told me about something and it does resonate with me. I change it a little bit. So that's my, learning.
Yeah, I totally agree with Jakub. This is extremely important process at some point of the company because you learn. I mean, those questions those people ask you are very important and very often very smart. I mean, you need to spend some time to answer some of those questions. And especially when you're going to the fundraising process, you are in the process. You are not thinking about your company, your staff, you're thinking about the fundraising, and you're thinking about your vision, your strategy, your financials, like fully. And those questions helped us a lot to form our vision, to form our product. And definitely those guys, and also what was really important, when you create a pitch deck, when you, before your round, you very often, in our scenario, very often change that pitch deck because some of those questions help us understand something about the market or something about our competition. And we always make like, with each of those fundraising processes, we make like between 12 to 15 different versions of our pitch deck. We modify it a little bit. So definitely questions from those investors help us to understand it better.
I agree with all of that. I think also that details are very important, like details in your pitch deck, like you polish it, like Rafał just said, but also the details about the meetings, like at some point sometimes when you talk to people you feel that the meeting went really well, but it didn't. And at some point you started noticing these details about the conversation, about people. One of the biggest learnings for me was that people are so different. And sometimes, I remember that once I pitched in front of the guy and he hasn't asked any questions. He was kind of, I don't know, angry, mad. I don't really understand it. But then the questions that followed at the end of the pitch and how deep these questions were, that was very eye-opening. So whenever you go to fundraise, you should be open that there are very specific personalities out there, and really often these are really, really smart guys. And yeah, that's the biggest benefit of doing the fundraising.
People are different, and let's talk about it a little bit more. Do you think that it was more difficult for you, European startups, than for American ones to get the funding, especially from investors from Silicon Valley? And does it even matter? Does it matter that you are from Europe or not at all?
I can start with that. So it is more challenging. I remember many meetings. They just start. You enter the boardroom. there's water and TV and the deck and everything, and they walk in and they say, hey, hey Jacob, where are you based? Right, it's the first question. It's the first question, right? And you need to have a good answer for that. I can tell you later on what should be. But of course, U.S. investors are probably a little bit biased towards like U.S. Entrepreneurs. They act slightly different. They have slightly different confidence and background and so on. But again, as long as you have a good product and like a bold vision, and you are also you have strong determination, I think they will respect you sooner or later, right? With the fundraising, you can receive 100, rejections. And by the way, that's something we also learned, that you have to deal with rejections a lot, and you have to be really strong because, every day, or, and also, I don't know if you have noticed that, but they typically don't tell you no, because they kind of, I don't know,
like not on a meeting.
Not on a meeting, right? Sometimes they don't even tell you a few weeks later. But you need to deal with these rejections, and I think for the U.S. investors, you have to be really kind of strong as a founder and just keep going. They need to see you are around. They need to see your startup be around in the press, and they know you're fundraising. They talk to each other. So I think you can hack it as long as you have a good product instructions. You can hack it, right? So I wouldn't say that you shouldn't try. You should definitely try. It's a little bit harder, but you will make it.
Yeah, it's not about office, because all of us, we do have offices in US, in Silicon Valley. I know you got an office in New York. So it's not about office to be a US startup. Everything is about mindset. So and those people, they're extremely smart and experienced, so they feel it. So it requires a lot of practice to act like them, I would say. Yeah, but as Jacob said, so everything is about product and everything is about traction. So those guys, if they see good product, if they see good traction, if they see good team, doesn't matter when you are based.
I think that there are pretty much two factors. Like first factor, where is your DNA as a company? If the founders are based in Poland and you try to raise in the Silicon Valley and you cannot show commitment to the US market, like 50% lower efficiency on the funnel. If you have another dimension of that is your traction, where your traction is. If your traction is outside of the US, not in the US, it's another 50% lower traction, lower efficiency of the funnel. So there are some basic rules that investors there really expect you to do. Like commitment to the market, both on the company focus and traction side, and also where the team is. It's changing slowly. Right now, the big topic is China, and I think that just right now, Musical.ly raised a series, like a really decent series from out of China, even though their largest traction is in the US. So it's changing, but still, you need to show the commitment to the market. Because otherwise it's really hard.
I guess we're running out of time, so last question from me. What advice can you give to those startups that are about to start seeking funding right now in Silicon Valley, in Poland, outside Poland?
I think the main advice is to start doing that. Basically, I remember the early days.
Just do it.
Yeah, when we were raising our Series Seed, we were not thinking about the global perspective. We were trying to do that in Poland. And of course, you need to have the specific goals when it comes to the fundraise, and you need to understand the basic rules. As I mentioned, the focus on the US. Without that, it's pretty useless to contact the Silicon Valley investors. But you need to start thinking that this is a process, that people are doing that in fact it's not that difficult to organize all of that things. It's more difficult to go to a meeting and make a great impression, to show the traction. It's a lot more difficult. So when you are going to be prepared for a fundraise, it's important to have a healthy business that looks great to investors and that potentially can be a great investment target. And then it's simple rules that you need to follow, and I think that there is a lot of experience and advice on the market that you can get. Yeah.
I would say start to build your network. I think at the events like this, that's the possibility you can build your network. I got like 3 investors here in this room. 3 of my investors are in this room. And all of them I met at this event 2 or 3 years ago. So that's the great opportunity. You can start actually build your network today. And as Michał said, start doing that. I mean, structure that process. Think about that process. It's possible. And there's more and more, as you see, companies outside of the US who are raising in Silicon Valley. And as we said before, this is really exciting process. You are meeting great people, the smartest people on that planet. And if they won't give you money, they will ask you smart questions. And definitely those questions will help you with building your company.
Yes, I agree with Rafał and Michał. So I think the most important is just do it, put together like a simple deck, start pitching it. And I think my comment also to what Rafał said would be build a network not only of investors, but actually build a network of founders, right? You need to talk and you need to meet, you know, different startup founders and entrepreneurs because they will be the best people to introduce you to the investors, because investors, they trust more introductions from successful founders, right? So, and I agree with Rafał, you know, there are plenty of amazing entrepreneurs here. You should just talk to them. That's why we are all here. And I agree with Rafał that, you know, we also have few investors. We met actually, you know, a few years ago during Bitspiration event, then, you know, have a casual conversation and then they invested, you know, millions. So I think take part in these events, but of course, my another advice would be don't focus on that too much, right? So if you started to fundraise and let's say 5-6 weeks later, you're pitching and you're just showing everyone, and if you don't see traction, if it doesn't resonate, if people are not excited, just kind of, you know, give you a break and just regroup a little bit. Maybe you should fix the product a little bit. Maybe just ask your family, friends, or fools just to kind of give you some money and just like, you know, change something, build more traction, and then come back again. So it's a process, and it's okay to fail. I mean, everyone does. You know, sometimes for us it takes, you know, months. We regroup, we change the strategy, we change the deck, and then we start it over again, right? And as long as people see you are persistent, they will trust you because they know you're strong enough to figure it out.
Thank you guys very much. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Do you guys want to take questions from the crowd or not?
Do we have time?
You have 3 minutes if you want to take
Guys,
one or two.
do we have any?
Since it's a full house. Do you have any questions, guys? Yeah, there's one here. I'm going to give you... Oh, here we go.
Hi. My question is pretty basic and I would say pretty general. And it's about how do you, let's say, estimate the price of shares of your company? You said that you have like 50 investors. It means that probably, let's say, an average investor has like more or less 2% of the shares, maximum 2% of the shares of your company. So how do you do this? How do you negotiate the price? How do you negotiate what the investor can provide to your company, to your business?
So in our scenario, our seed round is based on convertible note. So the company is based in US, and this is a convertible note. So basically, it's a really simple process. Few pages of the note purchase agreement. And you define the price. So we started from $9 million. So that was our initial seed round. And you basically see if it resonates with your investors or not. If you see investors are putting money in that valuation, you basically take that money. And at some point, you got enough money, you focus on work, you focus on your product, and focus on your customer. And then a few months later, we came back with the valuation of 50 million. And then a few months later, we came back with the valuation of 18 million. So if you count it, you don't see, like none of the investors has got 2% of the company. So you need to be also very careful about the whole percentage, because before Series A, I mean, the guys are after Series A. We're almost done with the Series A. So you cannot give away more than like 20-25% of your company before Series A.
This is an awesome question because I believe that people focus on that too much. And our strategy was different. Like we always try to optimize for term sheets, not for valuation. So we try to get as many term sheets as possible from as many investors as possible. And then like the price just increases. Like when people feel that there are others, the deal looks a lot more hot, and they will just start bidding. I remember that once, one of the startups that I've met, 2 investors from 2 different funds met at the same hotel, and overnight the valuation increased by 50%. And these were like the 2 top investors in the world that decided to travel to one of the European countries, and they just randomly met. So you should try to focus on like creating that competition between investors. And my answer to valuation was always like, I don't optimize for valuation. I don't want to discuss it. We are here to build the business and to find the right partner, and that's all.
I agree with Michael that don't be too much focused on the numbers, because at the end of the day, your goal is to put the money in the bank and just back to the working on a product and talking to your customers, right? And of course, the more competitive process you create, the more investors you have in the pipeline, the better terms you will get. Because, you know, if you have 3 months runway and only 1 term sheet, what would be your terms, right? But again, you would be surprised what is the ownership of the most successful, for example, Y Combinator startups owned by founders. I mean, it's not, and they are extremely successful, valuated like billions. It's not about, you know, the equity for founders. Of course, it is important, the board mechanics and everything else, but I wouldn't optimize for the valuation, because, you know, your job is to put the money, just keep working on your product, the company.
One comment, you need to be aware that the process I'm talking about is about seed stage. The guys are talking about Series A. So then the VC, the lead VC is proposing the term sheet with the valuation. In our case, us as a company, we propose the valuation. So it's different processes.
And sadly, I have no time for another question because, of course, I had 3 minutes with our 3 guys. So, of course, you took all your 3 minutes. They're going to be sticking around a little bit. So if you want to talk to them directly, you'll be able. I'm stuck in front of a microphone. So thank you. Please applaud them, guys. Thank you.